Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. It is October 4th, 2024. The time now is 5:12 p.m. Eastern Time. Surprise! So, we're continuing on our journey regarding mind control technologies and how the agencies, the NSA, the DoD, the CIA, are using it to zombify a nation and, for that matter, zombify the world. So we left off at why would most people have trouble reading this textbook? Can you easily change your fundamental beliefs? Are old people or young people more likely to learn a more accurate model of reality? Why do we resist mental changes? The entire global war on terrorism construct is consistent with the logic of Operation Northwoods. Civilian casualties in America resulting from the September 11 attacks were used as a quote unquote a war pretext incident. And this was to galvanize the public support for a military intervention in Afghanistan and Iraq. Even in the non canonical Bible, in their texts, this technique is spoken of. God commanded Gabriel to trick the people into fighting amongst themselves. Gabriel was to go to the biters, to the reprobates, to the children of the fornication, to the offspring of the watchers from among men. And he was to bring them forth and excite them against one another. Let them perish under mutual slaughter, for length of days shall not be theirs. Enoch 10:13. And so Gabriel instigated the wars among the giants, which are the children of the watchers, and we also know them as part of the Nephilim. So what purpose should the journalism community serve? Is truth part of patriotism? Do we as a tribe believe in truth, justice, and the American way? Or is it just an empty mantra? Truth is the only weapon. Webbing lies takes far more energy to appear consistent than does truth, which seeks a lower energy state. In biblical lore and in information warfare theory, letting the public know the truth to decide in consensus their collective outcome is the only weapon that can be wielded against the agents of deception, who falsely believe that they know better and will therefore decide everyone's fate. The demigods that they design, active NSA and CIA and DoD systems. And here's a quote by a colonel in the Air Force. There are many people who can't handle the truth of their nature. This is the forbidden truth. The topics that they talk about and the takeaways. 1 is understanding of specific weapon systems and subsystems and how they kill, how they disable, and how they manipulate. 2, the active acronyms and project code names. The DoD likes to use religious metaphors in the naming of many of their weapon systems. So the global communication warfare is code name Gabriel. In Christian, Islam, and Jewish Bibles, the Archangel Gabriel is the messenger of God. Gabriel is the code name of the United States global communication war instrument. Many researchers point the finger at HARP and many other giant phased arrays around the world. The angel Gabriel represents slightly different concepts to different tribes. He is not only the messenger, he is known as the angel of death. The reader will realize how appropriate this name is for the integrated communications weapon system. Enoch 449 or 49 states that Gabriel presides over all that is powerful. Now, whistleblowers told the authors of this book about the system. We were able to validate it, but do not know whether it is an acronym. The whistleblowers said that they believe it stands for the Global Array Broadcasting Radio Information Electronically. Not all code names are acronyms, and we are skeptical that Gabriel stands for this particular acronym. So Al bin Hisham asked the prophet, "How does the divine inspiration come to you?" He replied, "In all these ways the angels sometimes come to me with a voice which resembles the sound of a ringing bell. And when the state abandons me, I remember that the angel has said, and this type of divine inspiration is the hardest on me. And sometimes the angel comes to me in the shape of a man and talks to me, and I understand and remember what he says." According to the non Bible, Enoch 9:12, Gabriel, along with Michael, Raphael, and Uriel and Suriel, hear the cries of humanity under the strain of the Nephilim. It was their besieging of the Ancient of Days, which is called Yahweh, that promoted God to call Enoch to prophethood. After Enoch informed the watchers of their fall from grace, Yahweh sent the archangels to earth to complete various tasks. Gabriel was to go to the biters, to the reprobates, and have them fight against amongst themselves. So next, Gabriel represents one of the umbrella weapons, which is called the voice of God's weapons, or the voice of God. Playing God is one of the greatest techniques used against religious orders. Mind control utilizes the ventriloquists, and they use these techniques of throwing voices of anyone. A 60-plus year gap in technology between the public sector and the private sector, or the top secret labs, allows for these agencies to appear like alien technology or play God using neurological cloning and behavior science, which is manipulation methods. The agencies have stored the voices of tens of millions of Americans through what they call phone tapping. These voice samples are used to identify voice prints, and they're able to spoof people or individuals' voices using all forms of communication. So, voice transformation trickery, or just voice transformation cloning, was used in Desert Storm and World War II. In Desert Storm, the United States government had all the phone numbers of Iraqi commanders and voice samplers, or samples. They spoofed orders to subordinates to make their troops go in the wrong directions and hopefully fire on each other. In a radio transmission, the signals can be overpowered. And this is an interview with one of the personnel, or the targets. Interview. In the near biocommunication technology, doppelganger, and the spoofing trickery, as they call it, is used in remote interrogations and mind control programming. The interviewer: explain the kind of spoofing used on you. The victim interviewee: you'll get a kick out of this. They had the voices of all of my relatives, they had the voices of my friends from college, and even the voices from my dead grandmother. I come from a very educated family. They did their best at using their voices to convince me that they conspired to put a brain chip in me. The voices were excellent, but the speech patterns were crude and not how my family speaks. They also got my name wrong. I used different variations of my name during my lifetime. Each character used a wrong name. I told the interrogators this and they got very angry. They said it was a gross incompetence from their research team and never to bring it up again. In the study of cybernetics, the brain can act like a digital receiver device with a unique resonant circuit. This allows for individual human control, in addition to creating necessary feedback loops of mutual adaptation between the control signal and the plant. An engineering term meaning the system to be controlled. And that would be you. Discussion of transformations to an abstract standard is described in the chapter, which is called Information Theory. This allows human experiences to be recorded from one person and to be played onto another, such as altering their personalities or playing sensory stimuli. And they will get into it later on alternate personalities or alters and personality overlays. It is important to not confuse the use of the word quote unquote plant in the context with an agent provocateur or a patsy. One of their systems of control and one of their technology softwares is called the Biometric Recognition and Identification Network. The acronym for that is B.R.A.I.N, called the BRAIN. Even acronyms for secret programs and weapon systems are difficult to uncover, and more so the precise derivative from the words they came often. And these are in dispute amongst researchers and Department of Defense sources. They have one called, again, the Tempest, the quote unquote mind, Tammy, and these are examples of very real and highly classified acronyms, but a word or two in their expansions of the acronyms are often transposed by the many sources and whistleblowers. While the public is stupefied about these advanced technologies and left 60 years behind the reality, Hollywood has additionally science fictionalized them. The Biometric Recognition and Identification Network BRAIN is a generalized biorecognition system that can run an incredible number of biosignature matrix or metrics. All these techniques to identify biological life forms can be multiplied together to get a very accurate or good accuracy rate. First, we will look at the various methods of identification and recognition, and then we will describe various ways that operatives use to defeat the systems. These techniques are also used to frame people to be deposed of or disposed of by local authorities. That was discussed in some detail previously. Finally, in this section, we will discuss the basic pattern recognition system, which is generalizable to any complex signals and images. So, the retina and the eye is part of this system network identification. The finger and the palm prints, the infrared vascular, the MRI, the CAT scan, teeth prints, your ear shape, your face and facial hair, tattoos, skin color, hair texture, hair color, height, weight, eye colors, and scars. Your walking gaits, which is really gait recognition, is what China uses in their system when they're monitoring with AI the streets. And it's now being used in many parts in Asia and parts of actually here in the US, Canada, and in Europe, most countries in Europe. So they watch your gauge, how you walk, your mannerisms. Um, they can copy your voice, your DNA, your heart electrical activity, your brain signatures. So whatever electromagnetism or magnetic fields that are coming off your thought process or your brain activity, and then the body dielectric pr- primitivity, impedance, frequency profile. I'll repeat that again. That was a long one. Body dielectric permittivity, impedance, frequency profile. The brain system or the brain name is the acronym for the biosignature software. Later, the reader will learn about the C.H.R.I.S.T software, which is a personality segmentation and classification software. How to defeat biometrics. So, defeating biometrics, the biometric identification technique or the bioidentification technique. Method to defeat it. The retina and the eye. So, how do you defeat it? You wear contacts. Contacts can change the eye color. The retina vascular patterns can be changed with laser removal. Another bioidentification technique, finger and palm prints. The way you change this the way you defeat the biometric system is by wearing latex overlays from a 3D printer using any type of prints contained in the FBI or police database, or you can grab them yourself. Then you have the infrared vascular signatures, which are extremely difficult to defeat, vascular plastic surgery, buy your own infrared laser to do it yourself. Then you have the MRI, the CAT scan, which is bone reconstructive surgery. You can have bone reconstruction surgery to defeat the biometric system. Then you have the teeth prints, and what you can do there is put caps on your teeth or dental implants. Your ear shape, again, you can change that by plastic surgery. Your face or facial hair, insertion of clay bags in the chin area or the nose and the cheekbone areas allow for instant shape changes. You can use tape that can change eye shape, special effects makeup to alter your look, or nose plugs. Then you have tattoos, skin color, and hair, texture of the hair color, or texture and then the hair color, height, weight, and eye color and scars. So tattoos can be removed with IR laser removal. Special effects techniques can alter the remaining biometrics of various degrees. So all the other stuff you can change. Again, eye color can be done by contacts. Now, the more difficult part would be walking gaits or the gauge recognition. So your walking patterns. You would have to practice and act in a different way, walk in a different way to change your gauge. Maybe add a limp to throw off the system. Then you have the voice, right? How do you alter the voice? You can do voice transformation technology, which has come a long way. Only a sample of the target voice is needed to mimic it. You can practice or alter your nasal cavity and pressure on the larynx or larynx. Wait, I'm saying this wrong. I'll leave that for another time. Um, Then you have the DNA, which is obviously difficult. DNA back then, I guess this was again a couple decades ago or a decade ago, it was currently impossible to alter your DNA, but as we know now, CRISPR-Cas9. Later, viral recombinant DNA processes can insert gene alterations, possibly surgical transplant of tissue. Then you have the heart electrical activity. You can change that by using drugs or a pacemaker that alters the pattern. Then you have the brain signatures, which they record. How do you alter that? Well, you can alter that signatures with drugs, hypnosis, split personalities, and or induced cerebral cortex personality simulations. To foil brain printing and many biometric signatures is a very large topic and beyond the scope of this book. Less routine and reproducible the thought processes, the more difficult it is to track and lock onto the target. But the detriment of less routine behaviors can themselves be an individual's demise. Does freedom really exist in the game theory or in this game? If you are quote unquote damned if you do or damned if you don't. Then you have the radio hypnotic intracerebral control, electronic dissolution of memory. So the radio hypnotic intracerebral control is the RHIC software. The electronic dissolution of memory is the EDOM, EDOM, know thyself. Memory recall is like memory refreshing in a computer chip on board. Random access dynamic memory requires a hardware refresh to keep its charge and data. It is a read write operation that must be done every 10 ms or so. Milliseconds. This is why a person's computer can't instantly start after a power failure. Human memory operates differently, but has some properties in common. Human memory improves with each exposure to the sensory input. Short-term and long-term memory also operate differently in the brain and use different biochemical mechanisms. Long-term potentiation, which is LTP, usually occurs during sleep. But what is particularly interesting about long-term memory is that it can be altered in a similar way as a dynamic random access memory. Again, dynamic random access memory, which is called DRAM. DRAM. The neuroscientists that duped to work for the Science and Technology Division of the United States use a couple of tricks to erase and alter people's memories, then diagnosed as a false memory syndrome by psychologists. The opportunity exists in human memory to alter or degrade it using many techniques developed by the S&T division, which formerly was called the TSS. While many drugs have been developed to aid in this endeavor, our interest is in the pure information mechanics of the brain's memory to do this trick. When a long-term memory is recalled, there is a window of opportunity to change it using suggestion and hypnosis. This is one aspect of the CIA's quote unquote EDOM project, with additional functions include degrading long-term memory by simply adding noise. An oft-heard allegation at the CIA has developed a mind control. Let me just repeat this again. An oft-heard allegation is that the CIA has developed a mind control technology they refer to as the RHIC EDOM. The acronym stands for the Radio Hypnotic Intracerebral Control Electronic Dissolution of Memory. And this refers to the ability to induce a hypnotic state from remote locations and impart hypnotic commands and erase the memory of the programmer, or excuse me, erase the memory of the programming and the period of time that it took to place it. Now, I'll repeat this again. An oft heard allegation is that the CIA has developed a mind control technology they refer to as the RHIC. The acronym stands for the Radio Hypnotic Intracerebral Control and Electronic Dissolution of Memory. This refers to the ability to induce hypnotic states from remote locations, so remote control. And this impart hypnotic commands into the brain of the person or the individual. And they can erase the memory of the programming and the period of time that it took to place it in. This technology allegedly includes the electromagnetic broadcasting as well as intramuscular implants. The erasure of the memory of an individual is reportedly accomplished by the electromagnetic stimulation of the chemical acetylcholine or acetylcholine in the brain. The first mention of the RHIC was mentioned in 1969 in a book that was called Were We Controlled? By the pseudonymous Lincoln Lawrence. Lawrence describes the RHIC in this manner. This is what he stated about the software technology. Again, 1969. So we're in 2024, almost in 2025. That's a very long time ago to be able to have something this powerful used secretly against populations of the world. It is the ultra sophisticated application of the post hypnotic suggestion that is triggered at will by radio transmission. It is a reoccurring hypnotic state and reinduced automatically at intervals by the same radio control. An individual is brought under hypnosis, and this can be done either with his knowledge or without it. And this is done by the use of narco hypnosis, which can be brought into play under many guises. He is then programmed to perform certain actions and maintain certain attitudes upon radio signal. I'm going to repeat that again because this is so crazy. 1969, they were able to do this stuff. So this person in 1969 in this book, I have to repeat it because it's just mind blowing. He states that the ultra sophisticated application of post hypnotic suggestion triggered at will by radio transmission. It is a reoccurring hypnotic state that reinduced automatically at intervals by the same radio frequency control. An individual is brought under hypnosis through the signal, and this can be done either with the knowledge of the person or without their knowledge. And again, they can use narco hypnosis, which can be brought into play under many guises. He is then programmed to perform certain actions and maintain certain attitudes upon receiving that radio signal. And then they show you a diagram of the person's brain. They show you the frontal lobe, which is having to do with decision making and problem solving and planning. Then they show you the temporal lobe, which is having to do with memory and emotion, hearing and language. Then they show you the parietal lobe, which is it's concerned with the reception and processing of memory and information of the body. And then they have the occipital lobe, which is concerned with your vision. So hypnosis in the old USSR and the United States is used as a weapon. It is also known as a mind control and psychotronics in much of the literature. Entrainment of the brain frequencies is done through strobing, entrainment, and evoked synchronized potentials. This causes an alignment of the fundamental frequencies of the two or more minds. It can be done through strobe lights and binaural beating stimulating the visual, or it can done by, binaural music. People are doing this to themselves. They're hypnotizing themselves willingly. And you can see all this stuff online on YouTube. Again, they can do it binaural beating, stimulating the visual and the audio senses, but more effectively accomplished through direct neural stimulation. This is connected to a field of study called bioamplification. As it sounds like, amplifying and aligning subsystems of the brain allows individual targeting with little energy as the brain circuitry receives and amplifies the very precise timings of the neural encodings in each meta looping of its cycles. The brain never shuts down, whether in sleep or in sensory deprivation chambers. There are a set of spontaneously firing neurons that can be manipulated with drugs or electromagnetic energy. These create the quote unquote altered states or alternate personalities, the conscious states which one experiences. In some literature, they are called psychotronic channels. Changing focus of attention is a subjective experience of the mind control with some additional neural noise. The neural noise is caused by crosstalk of the channels. The subject or the subjective experience is a dreamlike state with extra duplicate senses that can override the physical sensory system, thereby tricking the brain as to what it perceives as its five senses of the physical reality. So, this is insane that they were able to do this in 1969 already. Hypnosis can be used to implant thoughts and ideas into the individual. These ideas, used in psychic warfare, cause cognitive distortions. The CIA's program in mind control utilizes behavioral science to induce detrimental behaviors and negative thoughts in individuals. The negative thoughts can be piped into the target's head using the microwave hearing effect or the microwave directed energy weapons. Things like the audio spotlight, or at a subliminal level, even while they are sleeping, using quote unquote chatter boxes like Alice or Tammy software. They Tammy and Alice can automate the process of talking someone to their death. So these are the software, they're probably AIs by now, that can actually speak into your mind and cause you to go crazy, basically. This is just one method of silent assassination. Suicides are very common among British and US computer scientists who have links to the Navy. Sensory deprivation tanks are often used in psychic and neurological warfare. The image of the psychic slaves and soldiers are disturbing. For the long duration projects, the quote unquote volunteers are surgically altered so that their bodies or bodily functions can be monitored. Their bodies can be fed and their excretions removed while in a long-term stint in a sensory deprivation tank. They look like someone in ICU, but more wired. The reason for this disturbing setup is that people in comas and long duration sensory deprivation or sleep too much is that the human mind is cut off from sensory stimulation and their dream state becomes their reality. If an external signal is piped into their brains and their brains reorganize and become that external stimulation signal, they detach from their bodies with a very good remote sensing and influencing ability, which is bidirectional. The Nazis worked on this technology mostly, but the Russians and the United States government continued this experiment or the experimentations until they perfected the neurological psychic mind melding. And they did this at remote distance for all the warfare capabilities. Today, sensory deprivation tanks are unnecessary because the TSS chemical and the S&T division catalytic enhancers. So this is the end to this chapter. The following chapter that I'll be talking about would be the mentally integrated neuron duplicator, again, which is the MIND, MIND. We'll get into that project and what it does and how it affects uh, the populace, because they're using this on the populations of the United States, the populations of Canada, and basically the populations of the rest of the world. Again, 1969, they were experimenting with this type of software. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, hit on notification for future live streams and videos. If you want to support monetarily, you can support me at the links in the description. Bitcoin, PayPal, Cash App, and Patreon. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon.